Okay, folks, welcome back to Battle for Azeroth. So I went ahead and boosted my mage with my Shadowlands boost, and I played around with Arcane, and it pretty much plays the same way at max level that it does as you're leveling. That said, I was playing around with the talent, or not the talents, the stats, trying to figure out kind of how mastery fit into it, basically. When I was leveling, before I had mastery, which you get at level 80, somewhere around level 80, all I had was haste and critical strike. And that stacking critical strike seemed to be the way to go, seemed to what made the difference. I had a little bit of versatility, I think, like on my heirloom gear or something that that dropped, but not too much to really make a difference. Just kind of that typical kind of few percent that that you get, that I think we all get at one point or another, just from having it like on one piece of gear. That said, I decided I wanted to play a different spec for a while. Just got a little burnout doing the assaults and all of that. Bearing in mind too, it's probably warrant somewhat of a disclaimer. When I was trying to kind of play around, test out the stats for Arcane, I had just started getting corruption gear. So yeah. Still, that was kind of a gradual process. Although going straight into assaults, I mean, I was getting a piece like almost every assault I completed. So it took me a while to get the cloak. I think I've had the cloak for most of the time I've been 120 at this point. That was like the first thing I did, or one of the first things I did when after I used my boost on this character. So I switched over to Frost briefly and set Frost up. And it was okay. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. However, Frost has always kind of been my go-to. So I was just kind of eh. So I decided to switch over to Fire, because Fire had been what I was playing on my Alliance Mage, and I seemed to be enjoying that, and I was kind of playing around with the talent and different things. So I wanted to talk about Fire Mage. I don't know how detailed this is going to be. I mainly just wanted to point out a few things. I made a state of for Fire Mage, where I mostly focused on PvP. Here I'm focusing more on PvE, Mythic dungeons, some world PvP like Hall of Arms, things like that. So I made some changes from the setup I had been playing with. So the first thing I did was took Blast Wave, which does fire damage and has a knockback. So for PvP, you can see the advantage there. What I had was Blazing Soul, which just automatically would cast your Blazing Barrier every time you blinked, which is not bad, not terrible. Just wanted to try something different. So, and this actually works pretty well in PvE too, because if you use Frost Nova, it negates the knockback, so you just get kind of an AoE on a 25-second 25-second cooldown. From what I can tell, doing like Mythic dungeons at various either just your basic, you know, 0 key kind of mythics, and then various levels after that. Fire doesn't really do well with AoE damage. You have AoE damage, but it didn't seem to matter what I tried or what I did. You just were not. I just was not like, you know, top DPS or anything like that. Compared to other classes, it just did not seem like it was doing anything. I was either last or second to last. So now, single target, you could be the top DPS almost every time in every fight. So I'm not sure if that's me kind of the learning curve or if that's just the state of Fire right now. They've made so many changes to Fire over various expansions and patches that it gets confusing. Your memory of what works with what consistently ends up overlapping, and I think it ends up confusing you more than it helps. So, yeah. So far I'm liking this. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but it helps. So. The other thing I did was took Flame on. Now this had been something I was kind of playing around with on my Alliance Mage. And this gives you an extra charge of Fire Blast and reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds. I actually think, after really playing around with it, I prefer this over Phoenix Flames. It seemed like Phoenix Flames was the default choice because, one, it was your artifact in Legion, and those were typically pretty good. I mean, those were class-changing abilities. That's, I think, more than fair to say. And two, it critical striked, as does Fire Blast every time you use it. So it seemed like it made more sense to, as far as getting like your Pyroblast and your Flame Strikes and things like that. However, with the changes they've made to Combustion, I really tried to rely more on Kindling. You know, really see if this was worthwhile. And oddly enough, in this setup, you can pretty well keep Combustion off cooldown. So, or at least dramatically shorten the cooldown. I think it probably takes off a good, if I had to average it and make a ballpark guess, I'm thinking like 10-20 seconds it probably takes off. Which, depending on your fight, is not too bad. Also bearing in mind that I have, you know, the Heart of Azeroth and the various things with that that I wanted to mention a little later. So yeah, so Flame On seems to just work better. I went back and forth trying both of these, and Flame On just seems to work better. It makes the kind of the rotation and the play style a little more streamlined. You're not bouncing back and forth between two abilities trying to wait for something to come off cooldown. And a lot of things will take... there's a few things that will take Fire Blast, either give you a charge or reduce the cooldown. As I said, the Heart of Azeroth, I had a... no. Maybe it was a Azerite ability. It might have been. I thought there was like one or two things. At any rate, I'm using Fireball more than I normally do. So, I think that helps, along with Enhanced Pyrotechnics, which every time it fails to critical, it increases the cast time and critical strike chance. So that actually works works pretty well. Does pretty good with burst damage. Fire Mage overall does pretty good with burst damage, I have to say. So, the next one was one I was really uncertain about when I made the state of. And I tried all three of these, and I kind of was playing around with them again. And I decided to go with Living Bomb. This seems to be about the most efficient kind of overall talent to take. The bombs, which were introduced in sometime in Mists of Pandaria, were pretty good. They all did something slightly different, but they were pretty good. There was one for fire, one for frost, and one for arcane, and they all did something slightly different. The living bomb, the one for fire, does kind of cleave damage, kind of AoE cleave damage. Fire Mage was always based on cleave damage, so it would always do damage to a primary target and then like one or two others, so not necessarily AoE damage. AoE damage affects targets in a certain range or a higher number of targets. I think the thing, I had swapped this out from Flame Patch, and I wasn't happy with Flame Patch necessarily. It just seemed like the default choice, bearing in mind I was focusing more on PvP. A lot of mages take Conflagration, which is good, but it is this is the base stats right here without any, procs or anything like that. It does the least amount of damage. Now, Living Bomb, what I've noticed in PvE situations, again, like Mythics and Mythic Dungeons and PvE, just overall PvE situations. I've done a little bit of PvP, actual queuing for PvP now and then. Is that 10 seconds is really not that long. I don't know if they've changed this. I swear it had like a 15-second or 20-second cooldown or something. It seems like the cooldown is shorter than it was before. But this is kind of like right in the middle. And what's nice is that you can apply it to one target and it will do AoE damage. So again, you're kind of doing AoE damage, not a lot. I noticed running older raids that when I was kind of looking at talents during, I think, some RP part of it, I've been running a lot of Dragon Soul lately, so anybody that's ran Dragon Soul knows what I'm talking about. When I was looking at like my my procs and everything, and just kind of looking at each one, I was thinking of something, and I opened my talents, and I was kind of looking at each one and how they were adjusting with the different procs. And Living Bomb is pretty much kind of like right in the middle. Conflagration, I think, spreads quicker because it's applied by just about anything you would use. Fireball. I thought it was something else. I guess it is just Fireball. Yeah. Living Bomb, though, you can apply it directly. It spreads. If you get the proc, it stacks well with Flame Strike. Flame Strike, I was disappointed. I like the idea of Flame Patch. However, it does still apply Ignite, which is your mastery effect. So it is still doing damage. And then your mastery is based on your percentage. So I've had a fairly high percentage. I've also had a fairly high percent of critical strike. I don't normally have 40%. I think there was, yeah. There was a corruption effect that increases the amount of critical strike you gain from all sources by 12%. So that's helped. It's one of the few corruption effects that I could say has actually helped somewhat. Um, yeah, so not terrible. Again, just not great at AoE. And I really don't know what else to do to try to like boost that. It's just not really set up for AoE. It's set up for um, you know, kind of burst damage and ignite and things like that, getting your procs, and you know, it's not really set up. It's not really even set up so much for single target damage. It's a little weird how kind of how the whole Fire Mage spec is set up. Where like Frost is very straightforward and very clear. Arcane, more or less, once you've played with it a little bit, it's fairly straightforward. You need to get your arcane charges. You can do certain things with arcane charges. You can do certain things without. You know, it's fairly simple. Fire doesn't really go in either direction. So I think I've hit kind of a happy little medium here. The other thing I was going to mention was I've been using, of course, being a mage, I've had trouble with healing a little bit, especially in like Mythic dungeons. And what I have noticed is that if you can stack some versatility, versatility goes a long way. I got this trinket and had about and basically I've just been saving it just when I needed healing. Or if there was a particular part in a boss fight where I needed a little more damage, because it does increase your damage. I was kind of pleasantly surprised though that it actually made a difference when you combine the kind of healing percent with the burst damage. If you can get some pyroblasts out, you can heal yourself a pretty good amount. If I'm down to, you know, I've healed myself back up from being, you know, lower 90s, higher part of the 80s, and I've been able to kind of heal myself back up. So I was pleasantly surprised. I do still have the first kind of Heart of Azeroth relic thing that you get. I'm not sure what these are called exactly. The other thing I wanted to mention was I went out of my way. I finally unlocked all my... Yeah. There we go. I finally unlocked all my slots here, or almost all my slots. And went out of my way to get Memory of Lucid Dreams, which is from Najjar. And all you have to do is become rank 3 friends with one of the people there. Once you get so far in, you just have to go out and do some daily quests. I did the whole thing in a day. I did some in the morning, and then when the reset happened, went back, did some more. Each quest, there's 3 quests. Each one gives you like 100. I think it's just points. You need 300, so yeah, not too difficult. But why I wanted this was for the minor effect, which is your spells and abilities have a chance to refund 50% of a charge of Fire Blast and heal you for X amount. That I have noticed has had a very noticeable difference. More so than I think any of these other ones have, for the most part. I have kind of noticed the haste boost from Spark of Inspiration. Yeah, Breath of the Dying, not so much. Yeah, but I was kind of just looking through here, like, is there any of these that I really wanted? A lot of these I got from drops, from either doing visions or like that one was, I think, from my PvP chest. Yeah, Mythic Dungeon, PvP. Okay. Yeah. And this was, I'm guessing, a near vision. Yeah, so that was from a vision. And I think this was from a vision. Yeah, and that was from a vision too. So there you go. Yeah, so depending on your class, kind of look through here and see. A lot of these, this whole thing I just really was doing because it was part of the whole kind of progression right now. I wasn't exactly into this part of it. I'm just kind of like, you know, the little, you know, it does help increase your stamina. I did not realize that at first. It just kept telling me you've leveled up, and I thought it just needed me to come put a minor, I was going to say glyph, minor power in here. So yeah, kind of go through and look. I mean, there's a finite amount, and you get them from various sources. So like I said, I've been doing kind of a little bit of everything. Been really getting into Mythic dungeons, just because it's kind of been the only way to kind of push my gear. I kind of got at a point where, you know, world quests aren't really getting me much. I've been doing a lot of world quests too, just for rep or just to get like a piece of gear I wanted to maybe just have for a transmog at some point or something like that. I kind of been doing world quests mostly just kind of for fun, or if I logged on and didn't know what to do, had kind of done everything, ran my, you know, my older dungeons, did the visions, did the assaults, whatever. That's kind of what I've been doing just to kind of relax. Has been world quests. So I got quite a bit of, pretty much maxed out my level cap there, because there were a lot of quests that were dropping like 415, 425 gear, and then eventually that just didn't really mean anything anymore. I did do the first part of the LFR raid, the newest one, for a trinket, because my trinkets just were the lowest thing and I could not find trinkets anywhere. So, and the first 3 bosses all do drop trinkets. So, yeah, so Mythic Dungeon seemed interesting. I kind of did some for, I think it was for a weapon. I think I was trying to get like a sword. And I kept running certain ones every week, and I was like, well, this is kind of fun, you know, I should try to push this a little bit. And yeah, so I actually managed to get a chest this week and different things like that. So been trying to push my item level a little bit, trying to get to an epic item level. So doing the assaults when they come out, got my cloak to rank 8. So yeah, it seems like everyone's kind of struggling in Visions, so that's why I didn't necessarily mention Visions as like, well, I've been doing this in Visions and da 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 da. Yeah, I haven't been doing terrible, but I haven't been doing well either. Kind of depends on the group. I'm not really the biggest fan of Visions, so yeah. So there we go, folks. There is a little bit of me rambling about Fire Mage. So, Okay, folks, so I forgot to mention that I ended up, for whatever reason, with trinkets that gave me a fair amount of versatility. I was at about 20%, and I had one in particular that had an unused effect, and I was using this for the damage increase, because versatility does increase your damage and healing. And at the time, I had, as I said, both my trinkets gave me versatility. The top one actually had versatility as a stat. The bottom one, as you can see, just offers it as a on-use effect. And I discovered through that with the way that Fire Mage can kind of do burst damage with Combustion and Fire Blast, and just being able to spam Fire Blast, and being able to spam Pyroblast, that you can actually heal yourself up a little bit. It's by no means a reliable self-heal. However, when I kind of realized that, when I would fall to about 80, maybe 70 some percent, I would generally hold on to my trinket and then use it then, and just kind of heal up a little bit. And you can see here, when I use it, I'm about 18%, so that's about a fairly decent amount. I was at 20% easy with my other trinket equipped that had versatility as a stat. So that's not terrible, and it also decreases damage as well. So typically with versatility, I notice that the percentages are very low. They don't let you get too carried away with it, of course, for obvious reasons. And versatility is not something I generally stack as a stat. It just generally comes on gear with something else, so hadn't really played around with it too much. There's been very few occasions where it's actually been a viable stat, I'll say, for a class. It's just kind of one of those, as I said, you just kind of get with gear. Generally, critical strike, haste, mastery, those are kind of the main ones that you focus on, and then whatever else you get is kind of whatever else you get. The other thing I wanted to mention, rewatching the first part of the video, was I have upgraded my Crucible of Flame to Epic. And as far as healing goes, to expand on that a little further, at Epic level, this is the third rank of it. It actually heals you for a pretty decent amount, I have to say. Again, not a reliable self-heal. Heals you for about 20k, just a little under 20k. So not too bad. You do have 2 charges. So yeah, I typically hold this for the healing. Granted, mages can conjure food, however, you cannot eat in combat. And I actually made bandages, because I was trying to make something else and I had to make a bunch of bandages. And I made a bunch of Tide Spray linen bandages, which are just shy of 25,000, and those don't really help that much in combat either. They do and they don't. First aid's not what it used to be, from what I can tell. Yeah, as with everything else in the game, things have changed, and there's kind of an ebb and flow to things. So yeah, just wanted to mention that because I kind of found it interesting as I was doing assaults, and mostly assaults. I think it's helped somewhat I think in like Mythics and things like that, it actually does the damage and damage reduction effects. I think probably are a little more useful than the healing because you typically have a healer in a dungeon. So, yeah. So I hope you found that useful. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.